44% of Americans don't have enough cash to cover a $400 emergency. Forbes magazine.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mentality. It's your boy Gambo, and as always, I'm here with Simmons. Today we're discussing the importance of financial literacy. Why is financial literacy important for our community? And what are some of the habits and roadblocks preventing us from getting there? Stay tuned as we chop it up in another interesting episode. All right, welcome back to the show, guys. Drew, how you feeling today, bro?
I'm chilling, dog. Glad to be alive. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good, man. I can't complain. I always feel like I say that. Do I always say that?
I mean, can you complain?
I mean, I can.
But who would listen?
It's a good point.
There you go.
With that said, man, today we're talking about the importance of financial literacy, especially within our black communities. Why it's important and what the actual state of it is. And why is it that way? What can we do to be better with that? I guess, what are your thoughts on the current state of the financial literacy within our community?
So, coming from someone who really studies money, the movement of money, budgeting, finance, I have very little financial literacy at my current state. I don't think I really learned genuine financial basics until I was in my early 20s.
Wow. And I think, to your point, that's most people.
I definitely would agree with that. Most people, hey, a dollar will buy you this at the store, a dollar will buy you this at the store. But a lot of people don't understand the concept of, hey, my check is $800. That doesn't mean I have to spend $800. And if I just save some money in a certain account, I can make X amount of dollars just by not spending money. How savings can act as a second paycheck, and how credit and getting into debt is such a slippery slope and so detrimental to actual financial growth.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think for myself, I can certainly speak that, I don't think I even learned about money really until I graduated college. It wasn't until I kind of had to deal with larger sums of money on my own when I started making decent money. And as a kid, I was never taught or even talked about money. I feel like there's also a taboo, especially within black communities or even poor communities, that we just don't talk about money because it's kind of taboo for you to do that. And I don't know why.
So we definitely talked about money. And every conversation about money was the fact that we didn't have it. That was literally the only talk of money that went on in my house.
Right.
It was, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. Not to say that we're poor by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just, that's the only time we're going to ever consider money is do we have enough for X, Y, and Z?
Right. I mean, but I think even beyond that, so even talking about money is for example, when you got that job, your first high school job or whatever, what do you do with that money? The most thing my mom might have said was save your money, right? Because for us, it's the number one thing is if there's anything that you can do with money, you either spend it or you save it. There is no other medium that exists outside of that bubble. And even when it comes to personal stuff, like with my mother growing up, you're right, it might be things that, oh, I can't afford that. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. There was never any intricate talks about money. Hey, you wanna save this portion of your money, and you want to be able to do this with this portion of your money. It was never any intricate talks about it. It was just more so high level concepts of make sure you pay your bills and make sure you have a roof over your head, and that's it. It's
100%.
very bare bone, very bare minimum. And I think, again, I think one of the reasons for that is typically in our communities, I think, money just isn't talked about because it's almost taboo. We don't talk about the intricacies of it. And you're right. If we do talk about it, it's usually on the negative side. And people also often feel like they don't need money. Not that they don't need money, but they feel like it's not important enough. You know what I mean? Sometimes people have the idea that money equals bad. And so they don't really want to talk about money because, well, money's the root of all evil. Or money's X, Y, and Z. We all know we need it to be able to attain a lifestyle that we want. However, it's when you talk about it, it's just like a negative thing. At least that's kind of like been my experience. I don't know about you.
Nah, it's pretty similar actually. It's just people who have a shit ton of money are seen as evil. They had to do something shady to get it
Right.
in the first place. Super rich people are super evil. They're shady as hell. They rob from the poor and just keep for themselves. They're greedy.
Right.
Like, but when you actually sit down and like look at how the majority of wealthy people, and to be wealthy doesn't mean you have to be a billionaire or a millionaire even. It just means
Absolutely.
that your bills are beyond paid for. You have enough income coming in from multiple sources. Your savings is nice and fat. If the worst case scenario happens, you will be financially comfortable. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people see either you're rich or you're poor. And the concept of middle class is most people in middle class think that they're poor.
Mm.
If you're not rolling in dough, you see yourself as poor. Therefore, why even bother trying to learn about this, that, and the third? Because I'm not born into the money, or I'm not going to compromise my integrity to make X amount of dollars doing whatever.
Right. Yeah, and I think also there's a long time saying that goes, being poor is the mindset. Being broke is an actual thing. Like you could be broke, but being poor, that's really in your head. And like you said, you don't
Yeah.
have to be rolling in dough to be wealthy or to even be, close to financial freedom. It's just the way you spend your money, the way you deal and handle your money. So hopefully we can kind of talk a little bit about that today in this podcast, because I think oftentimes we don't do that enough in our communities. Like even with the quote that you mentioned, that's a whole American statistic right there that shows that 44% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. Dog, that's crazy. It's like the median bill from a hospital is about $1,000. So almost half the country is $400 away from
One bad day,
something happening to them, and they can't even like take care of it.
one slip on the stairs coming out your house, you're done.
It's crazy.
Financially, at least.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem, and I think what plagues us a lot of times is really just the knowledge. It's the lack of knowledge. We don't know. Like if you look in our neighborhoods, oftentimes like you wonder, like now that I can step back outside and look in, I wonder like what's going on, because I'm like, I think last time we spoke about basically people not having hospitals in neighborhoods, and we have clinics. It's the same thing with the financial system. We don't really have banks. We have like cashier
Check
check
cashing
places.
places,
Check exactly. You have
bondsmen's,
literally
all that
cash
nonsense.
for gold type stuff,
Mm-hmm. Pawn shops galore.
because it's
It's
there's no knowledge as to like how do I transact with the money that I'm making, and there's no, this is really important, there's no delayed gratification. I think people just constantly want that cashier's check. They constantly want that cash order, that money order. So it's
that
like
income tax.
exactly. So even if I could pay a fee for you to just give me my bread right now, I'm gonna take it, because it's like that's what I know. I'm not trying to deal with nothing else. I'm not trying to deal with no banks and interest rates. I don't even know what that is. I'm not trying to deal with going signing up an account, giving them my information. I don't know what they're gonna pull up. There's that skepticism too that goes into it, and the aspect of delayed gratification and interest rates is not something that's distilled to our communities.
Where did you learn about even the concept of financial literacy? Like what did you do to become financially literate?
So that's a really good question, because my journey when I was in school, I studied economics and management information systems. So basically, economics has a large portion of finance, and so like I started learning from that aspect, but I don't think I really got into it, like I said, until I started really making a decent amount of money. I've always been on the conservative side of with money. I've always understood the value of being independent, because I've always seen how we've struggled as a family, like growing up. I just knew that's just not the way to do it. Like a lot of things in my life, I think I learned from the fuck ups that I've seen. So people messing up kind of gave me that sense of, hey man, don't do that. Do the opposite. So with that being said, that was like I guess the baseline of my understanding of, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Also, when I started expanding my friend group, to be honest with you, and I started talking to people about different things, And also, I just started like learning on my own because now I'm making more money. I understand that like something's got to be done with this, right? I can't just start dumping this on physical things all the time. I gotta do something a little smarter with it. So I kind of went on a journey, also learning on my own, considering the fact that I work in the financial industry. It opened a lot of doors for me. So I'm fortunate to be able to know people, who are about that. And yeah, I would say a majority of the journey is definitely self-taught. You have to use whatever resource you can. And that goes from like, whether it's a podcast like this, whether it's YouTube, whether it's reading books, watching videos, all of that, man. I did all of that and I still do it. I think there's so much about finance that can still be learned. Like, I don't think you can learn all of it. It's a continuous learning curve.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And there's still stuff that, like, I'm learning to this day. It's not like this information is, like, hidden and kept secret from the rest of the world. It's just that people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
I wouldn't even know what to look for when I don't even know half the stuff even exists.
Right.
And they don't put this out and about available for everybody to have access. Not so much to have access to, but to like let you know that there's something accessible here. That's been the hardest part about becoming financially literate, for me at least.
No, I totally agree. And I think we also get a disservice done to us because even in schools, we don't really learn about financial literacy.
We didn't even learn basic money management in school.
Literally. I mean, we
Like
have
how
like
to
electives like
balance your stuff and all that.
right. We have like electives like shop or I don't know, culinary, but there's never an elective on how to handle and manage your money, how to
So,
balance a
so that's the
checkbook.
thing. School teaches you to be a worker. Or our school, for
Right.
sure, we went to a trade school. It teaches you how to be a worker. They do a damn good job at it.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't teach you how to, when you get the income from the job you've done, what to do with that. How to use that income to do something more. It was actually at school where I kind of got in my head for the first time about some concept of like being more than just an employee. One of the shop teachers was talking about how he opened up his own shop, how he worked and saved and then used that money that he saved to eventually buy one piece of equipment and then another piece of equipment. His clientele grew slow, but it grew steady over time. And then eventually he was able to have his own practice in his trade.
Right.
And just hearing that story, it like got a lot of things churning in my head of like, I can do something different. I don't have to just go to work, get a check, pay bills, play with the leftovers.
Right.
I can use my money to kind of give myself a platform to do something greater, do
Mm-hmm.
something more, and get more money.
Right. And I think that's the key part right there, right? Is like we talked about the rat race on here before. And a major way of kind of escaping that whole ordeal is thinking about the big picture and not stuck. Even if you make, I don't know, let's say you make $500,000 a year and that's what you made. If all of that money is still going to towards bills, dude, you still in that cycle. Doesn't like I think we don't teach things like assets versus liabilities. We don't teach that. Like I hope people know what that is. But we don't teach stuff like that. We know money and spending.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think you even mentioned like a lot of this information is not something that's necessarily hidden, but it's just not out in the forefront. I would honestly say dealing with money and even economics or finance, like a lot of the concepts, a lot of the basic concepts, you learn while you're in the hood from a very young age. It's really the
Oh yeah.
same concepts. It really is. It's just when the terminology switches up, and there's this elitist mindset of what it is, then it becomes in people's minds it becomes a different thing. But it really isn't. Like
Best example, supply and demand.
literally.
If no one is selling this product in our neighborhood, then I can charge basically whatever I want for this
Right.
product, for this service. But if everyone and their mom is out here selling this thing, I can't sell it for that much. That concept alone is like literally like a huge part of the foundation of basic finance.
Facts. Dude, supply and demand is like the holy grail. I'm glad you brought that up. Like we could talk about supply and demand for years. I mean, obviously I'm an econ dude, so but it's so important, And I think everyone to some level or form of degree understands it. But like again, when we put it in these terms, then people are like, "What?" You know, when you talk about interest rate, then people are like, "What?" But you know, if I don't know what, like, we're not even gonna talk about drugs. But let's just say if you in the hood doing whatever, right? And you know, you somebody owe you money, and you like, "Yo, I'm gonna need that back in 10 days, but I'm gonna need a little bit on top of that." You know, I give you $10. In 10 days, I'm gonna need you to give me 11 or 12. You understand how that works because of the time delay, right? You
Mm-hmm.
understand the time value of money. But when we start to say things like time value of money, then you're like, what? What are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of bugged out in that sense because we're not applying the same concepts to things that we already know on the bigger scale, and it's saddening.
That's actually literally how I have been studying finance this whole time. I'll look at a concept, and at first glance, the concept is very broad and doesn't make any sense. But as I keep looking at different examples of it, I'm like, oh, it's just like this, and this.
Word.
It's the same exact thing. It's just called some fucked up name or something
Word.
that like I never would have like thought to call something this that like for options trading, like the delta in options trading. Like I'm sitting here trying to learn Greek letters and stuff when you just tell me how much the price is going to change
Right.
from day to day. Just say that. But that's not that jargon is necessary for efficiency and speed in the industry.
Right.
It's just hard for the layman to be able to grasp.
Right. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think that jargon is usually we use term to define complex or even like just things in general to make it simpler, right? To be able to have that speed and efficiency, like you said. How do we translate that into our communities? I think should start from the very infancy of like our education system. So I think it should start from like honestly when you're in middle school, like in elementary school, like when you
I would
start.
say your first math classes, all math classes
Facts.
at the base level should be money related. What other math are we doing as grown-ups?
That's a good point.
Like we're not all bakers, we're not all carpenters, but we all have to deal with money at some point. So like why am I talking about 14 watermelons versus
12 oranges.
17 dozen eggs and shit? Little Johnny's got 48 bricks he wants to give Susie and shit. No. Little Johnny got 13 bucks. Susie said, "Hey, loan me that. I'll pay you back with 5% interest." How much is she going to pay him back?
Right.
That is the only thing that got me through any math class was making it into money terms because
Money.
money is something everybody understands.
Right. Yeah, and it's crazy to see because when you like again when we look at our communities, it's like that mentality of debt is also like something that we don't even scrutinize really. We don't really shy away from it.
We encourage it.
We do.
The world encourages debt.
Like man, I just got these new Jordans, or I just got this new Beamer, right? But like, how did you get
Hmm.
that Beamer? Like, how are you paying for this? So you took out a loan to pay for the Beamer?
You
Okay,
didn't get
that's cool.
shit. The bank got something
Right.
and is
But
letting you
you
ride
don't
around in it.
literally, right? So I think, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everyone has to buy everything outright because there are instances where leasing options could be better for certain people based on your circumstance, and we could do the math on that to kind of disseminate which is a better option. However, I think when we start at the basic level, I think it's important for people who are usually bad with money to think about ownership and to think about like again assets versus liabilities. Like what do I have in my life that is producing me money or that's bringing in income, and what do I have that's taking away income? So like if you live in a house, a lot of people tend to think that homes are asset producing incomes. Not necessarily. You're paying the mortgage, you're paying the insurance, you're paying for the fixes that and damages that might happen. You're paying a whole lot of things, and you're also putting a lot of time into that. That's opportunity cost. And there's so many different things that go into it. And if you're not making any money out of that home, that's not an asset. That's really a major liability, and probably one of the biggest liabilities that you'll ever own.
100%. The only thing you have with that house is equity.
Right.
But if you're not going to use that equity to like get another house or another income producing asset, then you're just sitting on a big fat liability.
Now, if you can manifest, that home to produce a cash flow system for you, then yeah, that becomes an asset. But that's not often the case for a lot of people because we don't think about it in that sense. We think about it as like, well, just my house and my house, I have money in it. No, it's not enough. It's not how it works. And people, the worst one is cars. Cars, people really think
100%.
it's like, yo, my car got makes me money, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Unless you Ubering or something, and you know, like basically think about this. If you have a car and it's eating away at your money, or it's ate away at your money, that's a liability. If it's bringing you money more than you initially spend, that's an asset. So things that you own or things that bring you money are essentially your assets. Things that are taken away are your liabilities.
But here's the crazy thing about Uber. Uber causes so much wear and tear on your car. You're basically kind of breaking even at that point,
Absolutely.
because your car depreciates exponentially faster than a normal used car when you Uber drive. All that starting and stopping, braking, and short drives and stuff like that. You're gonna need a car in like 5 years.
Yeah. You have to run the numbers on a lot of things when you're going to do them. In certain cases, it can be a positive. In certain cases, it can be a negative. And I don't want to jump too deep in the weeds, but I think essentially what we're trying to say here is if you're purchasing something, make sure it's a reasonable purchase. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to buy everything that's going to make you money. You know, certain things you're going to have to just buy, like clothes or food or things like that. But when you're making large purchases, it's you should think about what you're buying.
And if you're going to invest, don't use someone else's success or failure as a determining factor as to whether or not you should go forward with the investment. You have to analyze your own. Look at how risky it is for you in this scenario, given your circumstance. What is the how likely is it that this is going to be successful? And you got to be real with yourself on that one too, because people, I'm so guilty for it. Get an idea in the head, and then just the gears start turning and burning, and you don't sit there and analyze the risk that's associated with the possible reward. And next thing you know, you're sitting here assed out. You didn't take the time to like look and say that even though it worked for this person, it might not work for me in this scenario. Or just because it didn't work for this person doesn't mean it can't work for me, because this person didn't do this, and the third. I'm going to do this, and the third, and I'm going to do a fourth, fifth, and sixth thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you even look at like credit cards within our communities too, like I know mad people who would just be excited because they got a credit card and they were just ready to max it out
Not understanding they got a 25% interest rate. God.
because we don't understand it. But that's not our problem because once you max it out, I don't care about that. I already got debt collectors coming at my front door, so I mean, they're just gonna tack it on that. And Ray down the street told me that, hey man, I don't even gotta pay it, so like, why would I care about that?
Yes, that's another thing. So many damn schemes and plots to get around the system instead of learning how to make the system work for you. That shit
Facts.
grinds my gears the most, because it's all this effort and energy you're putting into getting one over. If you just sat down for 5 minutes and learned how to utilize these things, they're not roadblocks. If you use them right, they could be stepping stones.
Absolutely. Like everybody in the hood got a genius new idea of printing out T-shirts.
Yo, my mans, if I see one more damn t-shirt company for someone who don't have any artistic value, that's the thing that gets me the most. That's what pisses me off the most about the t-shirt shit. Everybody wants to make a t-shirt. Can't nobody draw shit. What the fuck are you making t-shirts for?
And the thing is, I'm not knocking anyone who has that idea. I'm just saying, look again. It goes back
I
to
am.
supply and demand, like you mentioned. Look at the demand for it. What are you supplying?
Cause guess what you're wearing right now?
T-shirt,
Guess what I'm wearing right now?
T-shirt.
What the fuck do I need your t-shirt for? I don't need that in my life. Your t-shirt adds no value to my life. Your brand has no significance to me. The quality of your shirt is not as high as the quality of the shirt I have on right now. Therefore, why do I need your t-shirt?
You have to make them want that. And if you have an idea of how you can do that, then awesome. But
But
yeah,
there's the but.
you can think outside of that box. I promise you. It's just crazy that I think like it's almost like 40 or 38% of something like that. Of U.S. households carry credit card debt, and people don't even are not concerned that they got debt. People are not concerned that they owe somebody money because I think the people that they owe money to, it's not a person, it's an entity. Like if you was to owe your neighbor down the street money or your boy down the street money, I think it's a different feel. And what you don't know is, well, these debts that you're not paying off are being packaged and basically sold off to other companies, and they making money off that too by coming after you, and that's affecting your credit score. So there's a lot of different things that go into it that we don't even think about it because we're not seeing the entity as an entity. We're just seeing it as like, well, that's just that company, and I have no affiliation, no ties to that. But trust me, it always comes back.
Man, that is a modern day. It's a modern day form of slavery, because it
Absolutely.
forces you into a system that you have to be a participant in. If you're debt free, can't nobody tell you shit except for
Facts.
like the law. Other than that, you're free to do whatever whenever. It's your money. You can do whatever. When you have debt, you have to go to work. You have to make those ends meet. You have to pay this person, this person, this person. It's not going away, especially if you got student loans. Student loans definitely ain't going away, which I think is the worst of
Man,
all. Of all the debt they forgive, they legally cannot forgive student loan debt.
43% of students do not make their student debt payment. 43% of student loan
Damn.
borrowers are not making their payments, y'all. I don't know why you thought you could borrow all that money and not pay it back. That is crazy to me. That's about half of the population. Just like, you know what? Nah, I'm good. The student loan debt thing is an actual crisis. It's an actual crisis, and something must be done to solve that issue. But I'll let you know right now. Do not do not wait on the government to come save or rescue you, because probably won't
Dude,
happen. And if that's your mindset, then you're out your mind.
the military has this thing called not the military. The government has this thing called the public service loan forgiveness. If you work for a federal agency, like if you're in the military or if you're a school teacher, I think if you're a
Mm-hmm.
nurse that serves in certain areas and stuff, police officers, firefighters, if you have 10 years of service, they'll forgive all of your student loan debt.
Right.
Sounds fantastic. Sounds amazing. What they don't tell you is every dollar that they forgive becomes taxable income to you. Meaning on your next tax return, all that they forgave is taxable income. And you got to
Wait,
fight tooth and nail.
Drew, can you elaborate more on that? I
Yes.
want us to like be able to simplify these talks.
Okay. So I currently have $38,000 of student loan debt that I pay off every month. I'm going to have my student. I'm going to be debt free in exactly 5 years. If I were to wait for my 10 years of federal service to pay off my student loans, that means that my $38,000 right now, plus the 4.25% interest per year that it's gaining, because I have a 4.25% interest rate on my $38,000. So crunch some numbers on that. That end product after 10 years, let's call it $50,000. That $50,000 gets added onto my income, quote unquote. So even though the government paid $50,000 to my school to settle my student loan debt,
Mm-hmm.
now my taxable income increases $50,000, meaning it puts me in a higher tax bracket. So if I make $50,000 and then I get that $50,000 added to my taxable income, now I'm in $100,000 of taxable income, meaning I have to pay at a much higher tax bracket. I'm gonna owe the government more in taxes. It won't be that full 50,000 that I had to pay, but just know that I will have to forfeit that right then and there.
And so, are you being taxed this income for the duration of 10 years?
So it's a one time deal. When they forgive the loans, that's when that all it all comes at once.
Okay, so you get that taxable income gets tacked onto your income for the first year.
For the year that they forgave it. So let's say I had my 10 years of service in January 2027. So the government pays my student loans off in January 2027. For my 2028 tax return, I have to put how much the government paid on my student loans.
Right.
That becomes income for me that I have to pay taxes on.
Right. So essentially, your actual your purchasing power is basically diminished because you're basically paying back that money through tax.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but you're paying a good amount through tax, which is
Decent amount.
crazy. There's like a lot of these loopholes that go into a lot of the fine print that none of us really read. Like if you look at credit cards, when the APR is like 25%, and you're like, whoa, but people don't even know what that means. Like, dog, like, it,
Or when you have credit cards, oh, sign up with this credit card, you get one whole year at 4% interest rate. In fine print, after that 1 year, you'll be charged 32% interest rate for the duration of your time, blah, 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 blah.
I'm gonna just say one thing. If y'all get anything from this talk is, please, for the love of God, do not, do not miss out on your credit card payments if you have credit card debt. Even if you don't have debt, do not rack up credit card debt. You don't want that problem, big fella. You don't want it. Because them APRs, what they charge you for that interest is basically usury. And guess what? It's not just for the month that you couldn't pay. It becomes for all the subsequent months that you tacked on all of that money. So
Mm-hmm.
if you racked up, let's say $2,000 worth of debt, and you've been able to pay off all your stuff, you're paying the bare minimum every month, which I don't recommend you do. Pay everything off when it's due. But let's just say you're paying the minimum, like what's that, $25 or $35 every month, and you miss that one payment. They're not charging you the interest on just that, like that last portion of the payment. They charging you for the entire current balance that you have, which is 2,000 and change. So you're getting slammed with a 25% interest rate on that entire thing. That's kind of like usury. What I mean by usury is basically theft. It's kind of like, they're taking advantage of you. But we don't talk about these things because, one, who cares? Like, what? You mean they give me free money? I'm gonna take that. That's our mindset. But it's not free, dog. You don't own it.
You don't understand 25% of that $2,000. That's $500 a month of more debt that's unused that you're paying. If
You
you,
know,
if you don't got a problem with $500, send that shit my way. I'll take care of it for you.
facts. You know what's crazy is that we understand the concept of like the concept of debt. Like it's there, but I feel like we don't apply that concept when it comes to like investing. So the fact that you can be slammed with like a 25% interest rate, but then we don't put money away for retirement or for the future that you can literally gain free money from just by letting it sit. You could just put $100
Yeah.
and just let it sit for a couple years, and you would have made more money just by letting it sit in some sort of high interest yield savings account, which is completely free, by the way. Just look up high yield savings accounts. I recommend you do that because if you're letting your money sit in your regular bank accounts, those interest rates are poor. They're like 0.00 something. They're like something laughable. It's crazy.
You'll get like 3 cents a year
And you're
with a
technically
with a
losing
decent
money.
amount of money.
Right. You're technically losing money because of inflation, which is about 2%. So your money's being cut off. Anyway,
My best example of compounding interest is that one episode of Futurama. When Fry went to his old banks, he was like, "Oh, I need like $5. I think I got $5 in my account still. Oh, that bank's still open. Let me go to the bank." He went to the bank after being frozen for 1,000 years. The interest ended up being $4.3 billion or something like that,
it's crazy.
just from $5 sitting in his account, just getting interest every single year.
Put away some money if you can, man. Save money is the cool thing to do. The Beamer is not the cool wealth status no more. Trust me. Being debt free is. Trust me. Put your money away. You could look like a bum and still get bread in a bank account. And the idea that you have to be fly, or the idea that you have to act a certain way or look a certain way and pretend to be rich when you're really poor is not the look. I leave everyone with this. Think about your net worth. Think about the things that you own, the things that make you money, versus the thing that you are in debt for, things that you have to constantly pay money out of. That's where it's really at. Think about your net worth. Because I'll tell you what, when I'm looking at companies to put my money to buy a piece of that share or to even buy a bond or whatever, that's what I'm looking at. I want to see what that company is about as a whole. I don't want to just see how much money they're making. I want to see how much money they're making. I want to see how much money they're spending to give the debt, what their debts are. I want to be able to see the entire picture. So think about that in your own life. What do you have and what are you giving away? That's really where it's at. These are things that we don't learn, and we just think, well, I got $500 from this paycheck, so I'm gonna just get them new J's. I'm gonna get me an Apple Watch, and I'm gonna get me a pair of AirPods, and then once that's done, that's done. I'm gonna just wait till next time when I get paid, so I could get the new computer or whatever it is. But you get stuck in the cycle of redundancy where you just keep doing the same thing over and over. You're literally not inching anyway. When it's like 5 years time, you look around you and like, well, I don't really got none. I got a bunch of J's, and I got this Apple Watch that don't work no more. It's crazy. It's like
Everything new becomes old.
literally.
You spending all this money on this new iPhone. By the time you pay it off, the next one's already out.
Yep.
Most of the things we want, we really don't need. You really, really don't. Take that $500 you would spend on a pair of shoes, throw it into an investment account. By the end of the year, you might have 505 or 510, but it's $10 more than you had, and you didn't have to do
Facts.
anything. People want to get side hustles, second and third jobs. Just save your money, and that becomes its own second source of income.
Word.
When you really like take the time to deliberately save your money, and then you invest your money, put it in the S&P, put it in the Nasdaq, put it in the most basic index you can, you're going to make a decent percentage back on your money. You don't have to get another job. Now, if you do get another job and you do that for both of those incomes, now you eating.
Yeah.
But you don't have to work yourself to death to make ends meet. The ends can meet like a motherfucker if you just take the time to save your money. Spend a day with either you look up how to invest or you find someone who does invest and you say, hey, how do you do it? Not what do you put your money in, but how did you find where to put your money in?
Yeah, a couple of things with that. I think you're right. We tend to work a lot. Like I know I grew up, seeing people around me who are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. And the thing is, like, if you can always produce more income, absolutely do that because saving enough is not going to be enough. Saving alone is not going to be enough rather. If you can, the key is to make more money, right? So how do you produce more income? Just because you're working multiple jobs, like Drew mentioned, doesn't mean that that's enough because you're producing more income, sure, but you're also spending just as much as you're producing. The issue is how do you produce more income and what do you do with that income? How do you let your income work for you? So if you're working those two jobs and it's Christmas time, just because you got that second paycheck coming in from your other side hustle, your second job, doesn't mean you need to spend it all on the kids. Don't mean to spend it all on this new crazy thing. Make sure you spend the same amount as you would spend on the kids, on yourself, and the other stuff. You put it in something that's going to be investable, something that's going to make you some sort of income, something that's going to make you some more money, right? And I think that's kind of where we're lacking in our communities. It's just mind-boggling to me that people don't even save for retirement. Like that scares me. The easiest thing you could do if you have a job and they offer a 401k, just take it, dog. That's literally free money.
Because
Put
I
some money
promise you, by the
away.
time we retire, I don't think Social Security going to be there much
It's
longer.
not. It
I don't even know
really isn't.
why people are counting on it at this point. That shit's going to go away.
It's not. We don't have the budget for it. I remember in college we did extensive analysis on the stuff of who's going to pay for Social Security, and it's looking really bleak. I mean, unless something changes, it's probably going to be gone because people are not trying to take. We live in a society that's individualized, so we're not a societal country like we once were. Everyone's worried about themselves now. It's not going to happen. Make sure you are taking care of yourself. The government's not going to save you, bro. It's not going to happen. 33% of Americans, something like that, I think, save $0 for their retirement. 33%.
You will
Meaning
be
you
working in them
working.
retirement years.
What was that?
Say you and you will be working in those retirement years.
Absolutely. So you working all these years, and you get to the point where you're ready to retire, and guess what? You don't got no bread. And guys, trust me, you need a lot much more than you think. Yeah,
Especially to counteract that lifestyle you've grown accustomed to over your working years. Every raise you get means a new expense for you to get.
yep.
Now you have to balance all that
Lifestyle
with
inflation.
no income.
If you get a raise, dog, if you don't need to spend it, just put it away. Trust me. Just put it away. You was fine without that raise, right? You don't gotta spend it. You'll be alright. Trust me, you'll be alright. Just put it away.
For those in the military, and even if you're not, you can still attribute this to wherever you work. I just met a private who put me on to some genius shit that he got from one of his drill sergeants. He said his drill sergeant lives on private pay. I'm like, what the hell is private pay? It means that he joined the army as an E1 private. He maintained a lifestyle that fit his E1 pay. So as he got promoted to E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, he still maintained an E1 lifestyle. So all the extra money he gets from those promotions just goes right into his savings.
Yep.
It's the easiest way. If you're starting out, if you're just getting into the workforce, build your lifestyle around how much you're making right now, And then as you move up the economic ladder, you maintain exactly how you're living right now. Don't get a new car if you don't need it. Don't move if you don't need to. Don't get a higher rent, higher mortgage if you don't need it. And when I say need, as in your house burned down, your car is totaled. Now you need transportation. You
Right.
need a place to stay. And then even then, get something that is similar, if not exactly where you were, or even cheaper than what you just lost.
Yeah. I think it's very difficult for people to get outside of the mindset of wanting to live that luxury lifestyle. So it's like a lot of times when we see people who live these luxury lifestyles, that's kind of what we want to attain without even thinking about the mechanics that goes into living that kind of lifestyle. Some of those people who are living those lifestyles really have, it's like them buying that new brand new cars are dropping a bucket to them. For some people it's not. For some people they really are constantly in that same race because they're constantly spending mad like all of their money on all these bills just to maintain that lifestyle, but they don't have the freedom like you mentioned earlier. If you can evade that and you can, ride in that same buggy that you rode down and you have that thing paid off, you have everything paid off and you're living comfortably, you are literally wealthier than that person because you have freedom. And that's kind of what we work for money for, right? That's what we want money to be able to do things that we want to be able to do the things that we want to do, to live the life that we want to be able to live. Don't misconstrue money with the freedom. And I think oftentimes we conflict the two. So you think of money as the thing that needs to be attained, whereas really the lifestyle that you want is you just want to be comfortable and not worry about money.
I think it all goes back to what you said at the beginning. Poor is a mindset.
Hmm.
Wealth is a mindset as well.
Absolutely.
You have to get out that poor mentality and develop that wealth mentality. Wealth is not a dollar amount, it's literally how you live your life.
Hmm. I'm not gonna lie to you. I get really frustrated whenever I hear like I had the radio on recently, and I heard a commercial for like a car place, and it was talking about how you can get pre-approved for like $10,000 or some crazy amount, like $25,000 or something like that, with bad credit, no credit, any credit, and zero down. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell is that possible? And guess what? I was in one of the old neighborhoods that I used to live in when I was riding around. So this is the stuff that we get marketed to on airways on the channels that are predominantly like like hip hop channels, which we know a lot of the consumers for that in those neighborhoods. And these are things that are marketed
JG
to us.
Wentworth 877 cash now.
Literally, that
Yeah,
stuff.
we all know it.
We all know that
We all
stuff.
know
So
that
it's
shit.
just, and I'm like, man, this is like, this should be illegal. Like, dog, y'all are trapping people. Like, I mean, I understand that. Hey, they gotta eat too, so I get it. But it's like, man, do not fall for that. Does that even make sense to you? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, dog. How you gonna have no credit, zero down, and I think it said if you bring it home like at least 300, if you bring home $300 a month or something like that, you qualify for that. How the hell can you pay that back
You can't. All your payments will be towards the interest, and you'll be paying that shit until you're 80.
until you're dead? And guess what? Surprise, surprise. Certain debts cascade down to your family. So even though you're dead, your next of kin is going to get that debt.
There you go. Instead of putting $100 away
Crazy.
a month for your kid in a high yield savings account when they're born until they're 18, you gave them a college tuition's worth of debt. Congratulations.
And that cycle continues, man. And it's so scary the way we think of money. It's like, well, I made $500 this month. Yep, I have $500 I'm going to spend. Quick word of advice to give you something tangible to do. Once you get paid, I don't care how much you're getting paid, put at least 10 to 20% away for yourself. They call it paying yourself. Pay yourself first. Save that shit. You'll thank yourself later. Just put it away. You literally worked that hard. That money should not go towards J's. That's not you paying yourself. That's you paying somebody else. Instead of buying $100 worth of Nike shoes, buy a piece of Nike for $100, and you'll thank yourself later. It's
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 gonna be paying you in dividends
literally, and
all throughout the
you
year.
invest the dividends, what's making you more money. But this,
That's the real side hustle, folks. And dividends, I'm telling you, it's just one of the many things out there that you can do with your money. Simply just knowing where to put your money. I don't have to pad my application. I don't have to pad my resume with shit. I have the job, and now I got the money. I'm going to find out where to put my money that's going to get me more money back.
right,
It's small dividends at first, yes. It's a snowball effect. It's a little bit now, a little bit more tomorrow, a little bit more tomorrow, a little bit more tomorrow, until eventually you're making decent sums of money on these returns. It all takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, and that's probably the biggest thing to get in your head is this doesn't happen overnight. Working a second job is we feel like that's better because we're getting $500 in hand time now.
right now, yeah,
Whereas I'm only making $3 in interest this month from where I put my money, or $5 in interest this month from where I put my money. But you want to understand, 5, 10 years down the line, not to mention the fact that you don't have to go anywhere and do anything except for work the main job you have. But now your account has grown so much that now becomes, I made $300 this month from the interest in my account. I made $500 this month. I made $1,000 in dividends. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to go talk to my boss. I didn't have to go get the dust off my resume. I didn't have to go sacrifice my nights and my weekends, time with my family, time with my friends. I didn't have to do any of that. I just put my money in this account and went on about my business.
yeah, man. It's, I mean, and just to clarify too, we're not discouraging working a side hustle. By all
Not at all.
means, by all means, work a side hustle. It's just what you
And we're
do
not
with that
knocking
money.
credit cards either.
What was that?
We're not knocking credit cards either. We're
Oh,
not,
absolutely not. You can
not at
make that
all.
shit work for you. I do that, boy.
Yo, credit card points?
Me,
Dog.
I'm telling you,
My
when it
mans.
comes to man, I use the hell out of these credit cards. That's the thing too. All these systems, right? There, you can literally use it to work for you. Don't use it against you, my guys. There's so many things we could talk for days. I feel like we need to do multiple segments of this because we could do a whole another talk on just credit cards and how to utilize credit cards.
We actually should.
We should,
People
because
are traveling around the world on airline points
For
alone.
free.
For free. Hilton points, staying at hotels for free. Just because they use their cards to buy the things they use every day, like gas and groceries. Paying off the balance every month. After a little bit of time, bruh, you got a free vacation. Congratulations.
These things are so foreign to our people, man, and it hurts because, like I said, we are so much smarter than this, and then like the economics of the hood, I feel like it's more complicated than the economics that we do outside of it. It's just like the terms are so complex, and then we don't even think about it. Like we are natural born hustlers. We know how to make money, but we don't. But we don't know the information that's out there to us. We don't.
And that's what's crazy to me is why don't more black people who do go to school, why don't we study finance? Why don't we study business more? There's so many laws, rules, and regulations that can hurt and help us. Why don't we take the time to study that? That's what we should really be learning. I'm not saying don't do STEM and only study finance. If you're passionate about it, go study that shit.
Right.
But take a few, like when I say a few, I mean literally one or two economic classes, personal finance classes, just the basics. That sets you so much farther ahead than you would have been had you not taken them.
Absolutely. I always recommend to people to take two things when they're in college, or even if they have this disposal anyway, to take some sort of economic class or finance class, like you mentioned, and to take a philosophy class.
Philosophy.
Philosophy class, because
Yeah.
it helps you to think. It helps you organize your thoughts. And what finance does or economics does is help you understand how the world works and how things work around you in tandem with that. If you know those two things, you're set. And again, the concept of how the world works and how things work around us, by the time you're like 10 years old, you've kind of already learned that stuff. You already know how things work. You already understand it. You just don't understand how the concepts apply or relate, and you don't understand it maybe on a larger scale of why China is beefing with the U.S. and what the embargoes and the trade wars and all this jargon and stuff, what that means. But you learn that stuff from the hood. You learn that stuff when you was like 10 years old, dog. Like this dude took your candy,
100%.
and so you had to give him some type of repercussions, and you understand allies and enemies, and you understand all of that stuff. You understand ops. Y'all know what ops mean, right? So you understand all of this stuff. It's just when it comes to like applying it on a larger scale, somehow that information is not distilled down to that level, and it's bugged out, especially with this finance stuff. Like the fact that people don't save, man, just for retirement, it scares me to death. Because what ends up happening is, even if we have one person who's successful in a family that makes it out, you ultimately become responsible for everybody else who's in your family who's not making it, because we now have a
Yeah.
burden to help these people. But the thing is, we can all eat. That's another thing. I think people think money is like limited. It's like there's not enough money. Oh no, there is an infinite amount of resources. Trust me, not an infinite amount. I don't want to like that's basic economics. There is a finite amount of resources, but there's enough
But
for
it's
everybody
it's
to eat.
plenty.
There's plenty.
Well,
Trust me.
we can all get fat out here if we really sat down and crunched some numbers. We can all, for generations. That
Facts.
generational wealth, it's possible, and it's so much easier accessible. It's so much more accessible than we realize. You don't have to be a multi-million-dollar athlete or a famous a celebrity. You don't have to do all that. You can be an accountant. You can be a chef. You can be a cook and create generational wealth from that income. It's just a matter of, number one, bare minimum saving something. Like if you take anything from this podcast, every dollar you get, save a portion of that dollar. If you find a dollar on the street, put 15 cents into your savings account. Find a percentage that you are going to be able to feasibly save without stressing yourself and without coming up short on your responsibilities, on your debt obligations. If it's 1%, that's 1% more than you had.
Facts. And that's a powerful thing. And to Drew's point, don't just do that one time or two times and be like, well, I've done it. You gotta literally do it consistently. That's what separates, the rich from the poor. They understand that success or outcome is driven by consistent habitual actions. So you have to be able to do that to produce results. And that doesn't mean you necessarily save that 15 cents in your mattress. You could do that, which is better than nothing, but don't do that because that's kind of defeating the purpose. Put that into something that's going to grow you some money. And yes, these things do exist. It might seem like you're not making a lot of money. It might seem like one of my 15 cents, I only made a fraction of a penny. That's fine. Just let that keep growing. Trust me, when you come back 30 years, it's going to be a lot much more than you had. And it's better than nothing. More money makes more money. So it doesn't matter if you start off with $1, it's $1 more than you had. Next time it's going to be $2. And $2 becomes like $4. And $4 becomes like $8. And you keep going. You keep adding more. I mean, obviously not in that same increment, but you keep growing incrementally. Delayed gratification, guys. $500 now is cool, but I guarantee you'd rather have $30,000 in 30 years.
And you take that $30,000 and now you can do a shit ton more than whatever that $500 would have gotten you.
Facts.
Right then and there.
And for more experienced listeners who are listening to this, we understand the time value of money. We don't want to go into the weeds. I understand $1 now is worth more than $1 tomorrow. We understand that concept. But this is because I've been getting some stuff in the inbox about people who question some of the advice that we're given. This is not really even necessarily advice. It's just stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis. But understand that this is at the crux of it, the basis of just knowledge that I think is helpful. It's to not complicate things when you're starting out to build your life in the right direction. Don't complicate things. Just put some money away in a place that makes sense. That's a good start.
I will say in closing on this, it's not like take everything that they say with a grain. Take everything we say with a grain of salt.
Facts.
But I'm gonna recommend a book. Take everything he says with a grain of salt. But he does spit true 100% facts. Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, it's a good book.
He has a lot of good gems in that book that can get you started on your financial journey. Not everything he says is gospel, because he has been known to be
He's an
doing some
asshole.
criminal
Yeah,
shit.
sometimes.
But he's not wrong when he says a lot of the things he says in that book.
Absolutely. That is a classic.
And that is like a foundation. If you're just starting out, it's an easy read, and the audiobook is on YouTube. You have no excuse. If you have an afternoon or a long drive ahead of you, a commute, throw on that book, listen to the gems he's dropping in that book, and then it'll be easy to go from there.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I'm also going to just recommend one more book. If you can't get to the other one, either one that you do, trust me, is good. It's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Really good book. Do you remember the author, Drew?
I don't remember the author, but I remember that book when you recommended it to me.
That is a
Good
phenomenal personal finance book. I Will Teach You How to Be Rich. It compares finance to working out, and it shows you some of the correlations of the concepts. It's just a phenomenal book that you should check out. So, Rich Dad Poor Dad by
I Will
Robert
Teach You to
Kiyosaki.
Be Rich by Ramit Sethi
Yes,
is I Will Teach You to
Ramit.
Be Rich. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Those two books, or either one of those two books, are enough to get started, and goes a lot much more into depth as to what we could talk about in an hour on this podcast. So please check that out. We'll hopefully put a link in the show. We are not affiliated with any one of these books, but we highly recommend that you check them out, just because we're just trying to drop knowledge for the hood, and for anybody who's listening, just to be able to better yourselves. We can all eat out here, and it's not that complicated. These concepts, these ideas are not foreign to us. We learn them by the time we're like 10 years old. And it's just simply applying those same concepts on a grander level. It's simple, man. Stop carrying cash. Start putting some stuff away. Cash is king, but make cash work for you. With that being said, Drew, do you want to add any closing remarks?
And since we're talking about investing, books are a huge investment. Books are an investment because books literally can shape the way you live the rest of your life just by the knowledge that you gain from these books. I recommend everyone to read. If you don't like reading, like me, audiobooks. I think I listened to 50 books last year alone. 50 whole books. Like, if you haven't read a book in a long time, audiobooks are a great way to get into it. Check them out and invest in your knowledge, and invest in your future. Invest in yourself. Stop putting your money in other people's pockets. Put it back in yours.
Oh, y'all heard the man. Just make sure y'all get these books. Make sure y'all watching these videos. Make sure y'all listen to these podcasts. And together we are able to build ourselves. And with that being said, well, I appreciate y'all for listening. As always, y'all catch us out on Instagram. Y'all catch us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any major platform that you listen to your podcasts on. Please make sure you follow us on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to our show. And drop us a comment, give us a like, a review, all of that. We want to hear back from y'all. And with that being said, Drew, thank you for being here. Until the next time, we'll catch y'all later. Deuces.
Peace.